For the longest time, I was pretty convinced that I was the only person in the world who just didn't like Pokemon Sun and Moon. Like, especially when the first reviews came out and everyone was speaking so positively about them, and they were saying that like this is the new way that main series Pokemon games should be handled, and this is how we should do things from here on out, and I was just kind of there like, really? Like, wow, okay. You guys having that much fun? It hurt me to say, but I genuinely wasn't enjoying myself, and I still don't. And I do think that public opinion has shifted a little bit over time. Like, people have started to see the games for their flaws more, and they're not as positive as they were when they first came out. But that's only natural, right? There's always there's always a knee-jerk reaction to this kind of thing. But for me, this was the first time I'd ever played through a main series Pokemon game, and I was like, I'm genuinely struggling to finish this. Like, when I got to the end, I was kind of just waiting for it to end. And I mean, I've not loved every main series Pokemon game. I have a problem with another generation that everyone loves, and maybe I'll get into that one day. But I've never felt this way about it, right? And I've been a fan all my life. Like, ever since I was a kid, I've got memories of playing the original Gold and Silver outside in my garden with my older brother. Like I say, it genuinely sucked to kind of think to myself, wow, I hate this. I toyed around with changing the title of this video from why I hate Pokemon Sun and Moon to why I strongly dislike Pokemon Sun and Moon, or any kind of alternative language, but I couldn't justify it. Like, in relation to the main series games and the other spin-offs that I've enjoyed so much, I would say that I hate them. So I'm going to stop rambling now and finally get into why that is, but before I do, I'm sure you don't need me to patronize you and tell you that if you feel differently, you know, don't be a dick and all that, and be civilized. Like, if you're a Dumbo, then that's what you're going to do, but if you're not a Dumbo, then you'll know that I don't think less of anyone who thinks differently. Like, if you like Sun and Moon, then genuinely, that's great, because I honestly wish I could have loved these games too, but I just didn't. So, you know, this is my opinion, it's just my opinion, it's no big deal. And before I really rag on it and get into why I dislike it so much, I will give the game some credit, and I'll talk about the things it does well, because obviously, as much as I very much do not like them, there are certainly things they do well, and there are certainly things there that are deserving of praise. So the first piece of credit I'm going to give to these games is actually the plot, which might surprise you because that probably sounds like quite a big thing to like about a game that you supposedly hate. But I'd say I like the plot. I don't love it, but it's, you know, it's fine. It's nothing amazingly unique or interesting, but it's a pretty simple by the numbers plot, and I think it's well told. I've talked earlier about another generation that I dislike, and that's probably another thing that a lot of people are going to boo me for, but part of the reason I don't like that generation is because I think they tried to do this whole kind of thing about moral complexity and, you know, is it okay to keep Pokemon and talk, you know, really talk about the morals of it, and then they just kind of contradict themselves at the end by having the bad guy be like, oh, it was a ruse all along, here's the objective correct answer. And I'm gonna blast Sun and Moon a lot for being not very ambitious later on in this video, but I actually think the plot of these games is one of those examples where not being particularly ambitious was actually a good thing, because they didn't wind up doing any stupid kind of, you know, contradiction at the end, any kind of big reveal that kind of walks all over the plot they tried to lay out for the rest of the game. It's all about Lily, who's this very shy and reserved girl, and she doesn't really stand up for herself, and she learns to over the course of the game. She learns to kind of be less passive and to stand up for herself and to really follow her dreams and start living for herself. And like I say, it's nothing amazing, but it's probably the best plot we've ever had in a main series Pokemon game, and I understand that's not really saying very much at all, but it is something. When you first meet Lily, she's too scared to jump in front of a couple of Spearow, and then by the end of the game, she's shouting at her big evil jellyfish mum in space. It makes more sense when you get there. By extension, I want to say that I think the region of Alola is really well realised in general. Another one of my hot takes that people might silently judge me for is that I actually quite like Generation 6, but one of the biggest criticisms I would have for Generation 6 is that the world feels very disconnected. Like, I think you go from like Route 15, which is this kind of autumny, leafy tree place, right into this town that's like got loads of snow and ice, and then you go through the next route and it's just like, oh, snow. There's lots, you literally have to get on a mammoth to get through this, and it just feels very inconsistent and quite jarring. And Alola, obviously being based off of Hawaii, is just a lot more consistent than that. It's a lot more aesthetically pleasing. It's just got a lot of nice colours and aesthetics. You know, I just think it's quite a nice place to be in, and I think they did a pretty good job with it. I think the legendary Pokemon on the covers of the game are handled better in Sun and Moon than any other Pokemon game ever, because until now they haven't really felt special outside of being some big lads who can shoot laser beams. It's always just go to the top of a mountain and throw a ball at them, but in this game you're made to feel an emotional connection to them because, spoiler alert, it's the little gas ball guy who's been in Lily's bag the whole time. I honestly love everything about the way that the legendaries are handled in this game. When you finally meet Solgaleo or Lunala, it feels wrong to not take them along with you because they've been with you the whole time, and like I say, you have a genuine emotional connection to them, which is far more than you can say for any of the legendaries from the previous titles, and I love that. I hope that they start to do this more often in the future. Seriously, I think everything about this is great. The cutscene leading up to it, just the location and kind of the aesthetics surrounding when you finally meet them is a moment that has genuine emotional weight, and I love it. I think it's excellent. Probably the most obvious piece of praise that I have for these games, and the same thing that just about everyone else has praised these games for, is the abolishment. They got rid of HMs. They got rid of HMs, and thank God. HMs had been bogging down the games for years, forcing you to effectively waste a move slot on your Pokemon on a move that is almost never any good. They can only be deleted by the move deleter. They're just a huge pain. Getting rid of them and replacing them with the Pokeride is a great idea, but even then, as petty as it may be, I even have a problem with the Pokeride, and we'll get into that later, but yeah, getting rid of HMs was a great change. One final thing that I forgot to mention as well is hyper training. In Generation 6 they introduced this thing called super training, which was basically a way to more effectively max out your EVs and make your Pokemon more suited to competitive play. And then in Generation 7 they one-upped it with hyper training and made it even easier to do that and make your Pokemon suitable for competitive play. And it's just really cool to see Nintendo and Game Freak finally acknowledging the competitive side of their fanbase. So that's another great change. Now on to everything that I hate. Oh boy, it's genuinely hard to know where to start here. So I have 3 points that I think are semi-related that I'm going to link into one point, and that's player interactivity, hand-holding, and difficulty. So let's go back a bit. In Generation 3, they introduced this new item called the Experience Share, and what it does is you give it to a Pokemon as a hold item, and any experience that you gain from battle with other Pokemon go to that Pokemon. And this is a great change because it makes grinding a lot less arduous, and it makes evening up the levels in your team a lot easier. In Generation 6 they changed it so that it gives that amount of experience to your entire team, which in my opinion is way too much. It goes from making grinding a lot less annoying and a lot less time consuming to making the entire game a pretty trivial affair. I left the experience share on the entire time through my first playthrough of X and Y, and I found by the time I'd made it to the Elite Four and the Champion, I was grossly over leveled. I'm talking like 10-15 levels above the entire teams of all of the Elite Four, and the Champion was just completely laughable. A lot of people cite Diantha, the champion of Generation 6, to be one of the more forgettable ones, and I can understand that because her personality and her backstory isn't really anything special. But I also think a big part of that is because she was so easy. She was just so easy if you left the experience share on, because like I say, your team just completely trounced her in terms of levels. Unfortunately, in Generation 7, this problem was not remedied. In fact, Game Freak seemed to have taken as many steps as humanly possible to make these games somehow even easier. And I mean easy to a kind of ridiculous extent. And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, they're kids games, they're supposed to be easy, but I'd kind of resent that. I hate this idea, and I hate in particular Game Freak's design philosophy, and I think Nintendo's design philosophy on a wider spectrum of, well, it's for kids, so we've got to make it insultingly easy. Kids are smarter than I think games like this are giving them credit for, and I think more of them want a challenge than games like this are giving them credit for. And I'm not saying that you should make the games incredibly hard, I'm just saying that you don't need to dumb it down this much. Another change made in Sun and Moon is that during battles, the game now just tells you which moves are super effective and not very effective. Like, it literally just says it above the move. Where's the fun in that? Where's the satisfaction in literally being told which move is the best one to use? Where's the interactivity? You're just being given the best option. The thing is that there are articles and reviewers praising this change, saying that it takes the homework out of the game a lot. And I disagree. I think it takes the brain work out of it a lot. It's not hard to memorize type matchups. It's one of the few things that you ever have to think about in these games, and it just takes that away from you. You're already limited to 4 moves, but then you're just being told, pick this one, it's just the best. And I get it, some kids are not like me and the kids that I knew, and they just want a nice, easy, carefree experience that they can just sail through. And that's absolutely fine, there's nothing wrong with that. But has difficulty ever been a problem with main series Pokemon games before? Like, have they ever been so nail-bitingly hard that changes like this are necessary? The young fans are still here and they've always been here. The casual fans are still here and they've always been here. If they left the series behind, then it wasn't because of difficulty, it's probably because you've been doing basically the exact same thing for over 20 years now. I praised the change to the HM system earlier because it takes a lot of the unnecessary fluff out of the game, but for the life of me, I could never praise a change that somehow manages to take challenge out of a main series Pokemon game. I just think keeping the experience share the way it is and showing which moves are super effective during a battle are completely unnecessary changes, and they're not main selling points to most fans. And some people could say, hey, well, if you hate the experience share so much, why don't you just play without it? Well, that's where another problem comes in, because I did that. I played through Sun and Moon the whole way through without using the experience share, and it is abundantly clear that these games are not designed to be played without the experience share. With the experience share off, you experience some pretty crazy difficulty spikes, in particular from the Aether Paradise into Pony Island and the Pony Wilds. You go from fighting trainers who have Pokemon that are like mid-level 30 to late level 30, and then without any transition you go straight into Pony Island next, and the wild Pokemon are over level 40, and the trainers you fight have Pokemon that are in their mid-40s. It's crazy. At this point, I had to stop and grind for like a solid hour or so just to catch up with the trainers, but if I'd left the experience share on, then I probably would have been in like mid-40s during the Aether Paradise. This is just the worst example. There are quite a few bad difficulty spikes throughout the game, but none are worse than going from Aether Paradise to Pony Island. And so, Generation 7 is quite a lot like Generation 6 in that if you leave the experience share on for the whole game, then the whole game, including the end game with the Elite Four and the champion fight, is just kind of mindless. If you want the experience share to be an item that makes grinding less of a chore, then why not have it divide the experience by how many Pokemon you want to share that experience with? So let's say you want 4 Pokemon in your party to gain experience from the main Pokemon you're using, then whatever experience that main Pokemon you use for the battle gets, each Pokemon in your party that you delegated to get experience from gets a quarter of that experience. Or if you want 3 Pokemon in your party to get experience, then they all get a third, right? This to me hits the sweet spot of making grinding less of a chore, but not making it so that you're ridiculously over leveled throughout the game and turning the game into a complete cakewalk. The experience share in its current state also kind of enables that playstyle where someone just plays through the whole game just using one Pokemon. And I mean, you can do what you want, but to me it's like playing Fire Emblem without permadeath on. It's your life, but it's not, hashtag not my playthrough. I'm judging you for that. So the question I want to ask is this: when you got to the end of the game and you beat the final boss and you saw the Hall of Fame and you saw your whole party in front of you, how attached did you feel to your party? Because even when playing through the whole game without the experience share on, I didn't really feel attached to my party at all. In fact, I'd say I felt less attached to them than any party I'd had in any main series Pokemon game before. And I think that's because we didn't go through anything. The beauty of difficulty in a game like this is that when you're faced with a tough situation, you're forced to come up with solutions. You're not literally told what the best moves to do is. You have to come up with it yourself, and you come up with the solution, and you have moments, you have stories. You have a moment with a member of your party that you go and tell your friends about because you say, oh, I was in this really hard battle and then my Infernape managed to score a critical hit and that's how I won and it was amazing. Can you honestly say you had a moment like this in all of Sun and Moon? Because again, I'll say it again, even without the experience share on, I didn't, and I shudder to think what people's experience must have been like with the experience share on the whole time, and if they would have even come remotely close to a moment like that, a moment that gives me a story that I can talk to my friends about. The only battle that gave me any trouble throughout the entire game was Totem Battles, and for the record, I actually quite like the Totem Pokemon. I think they're a pretty nice and hard but fair challenge, but when I fought Totem Battles in my experience shareless playthrough and it completely destroyed me the first few times, it wasn't fun. I just got destroyed, and then I went away, I grinded up a few levels, I came back, and then I destroyed it, no problem. There was no in-between because the game isn't designed for any in-between. You're either going to play the whole thing with the experience share and just breeze through it, or you play it without and randomly just run into a brick wall, spend a few hours grinding, and then you get through it. So ignoring the two big changes to the battle mechanics that make the game easier, let's look at the rest of the aspects of the game, stuff like the overworld and general progression. How is that affected? Well, the beginning of this game is pretty infamous for just kind of bombarding you with cutscenes and story, and you get to play very little of the game for the first few hours. But the thing is, the whole game is kind of like this. The game just never really lets you breathe. These are easily the most linear main series Pokemon games ever made, because even after you get through this seemingly never-ending beginning section, you're always being led along to the next plot point. Check out the Rotom Dex. Everyone loves him, they think he's super charming and really funny. In actuality, he's just about the most overbearing tour guide ever. This thing has a line for everything. Every single time you boot up the game, every single time you leave a cutscene, he's right there on your bottom screen to tell you exactly where to go and exactly why you're going there. It's honestly crazy how many lines of dialogue this thing has. They have lines written out for the most insignificant story beats, the tiniest little objectives that you have to go and complete. He has something to say about everything. And hey, if that's not good enough, there's this kind of obnoxious red flag icon on the bottom screen that also shows you exactly where you need to go. It honestly feels like you're being incentivized to not explore. Like, there's nothing forcing you to keep going the way that the game is poking you to go, but you kind of feel bad not doing it, because every time you're not doing it, there's the Rotom Dex, there's the flag icon. You're being badgered so much to jump back into the main story's never-ending cutscenes and handholding that it's genuinely a bit exhausting. Like, taking time out and doing your own thing just doesn't feel good. Linearity and wanting to tell a story is not necessarily a problem by itself, but it's the execution that matters. And in my opinion, this game completely flobbers its execution. And this ties into what I was saying earlier about player interactivity. There's a moment early on in the game that had me absolutely flabbergasted. I could not believe what was happening. Okay, so there's this cutscene early on where Lily and Cosmog, the little gas ball who eventually becomes the legendary Pokemon, are being attacked on a bridge, and you have to go and save them. And there's kind of this long series of cutscenes where you go and do that, and then the bridge collapses and you fall and you're saved by Tapu Koko, who's this other Pokemon. And then Lily says some stuff and she goes and stands at the edge of the screen that bridges that screen to the next screen. So after so many cutscenes, you're finally given control of the character back, but Lily's like literally 2 steps in front of you. Like, you literally step forward twice and press A to talk to her, and then it just begins more cutscenes. Like, why were you given control back? There's nothing to do in this small area, this tiny area. At most, you can take like 5 or 6 steps in any direction. There's no items, there's nothing to collect, there's nothing to look at, there's literally nothing to interact with. All you can do is walk forward like 2 steps and talk to her to trigger more cutscenes. This is just so baffling to me. It would actually be better if they just didn't give you control back and just started the next cutscene anyway, because this is an inherently frustrating thing for the player, because their thought process is obviously, oh great, back in control, I can finally do something again, and then they walk forward 2 steps and press A because there's nothing else they can do, and they realize resistance is futile. It's mind-numbing. It's truly mind-numbing that a group of game designers thought something like this was okay. It's just terrible. It's exactly the kind of fake interactivity that is created by all those multiple choice questions that are in Pokemon games, where it's like you pick an option and then it doesn't change what the other person says regardless. And believe me, we'll get to multiple choice questions later. Pokemon Sun and Moon is not a holiday on a resort island. It's a guided tour. Your tour guide will never stop talking. These games grab a hold of your hand and they will never let go. This next bit kind of combines all three of the points I've just talked about. It's the island trials. I hate them. I think they're the worst thing about the entire game, and some people seem to love them. They give them extremely high praise and say that they're a very fitting replacement for the gym system, and hey, if you think that, that's okay. Everyone's allowed to have bad opinions, but let me explain to you why they're all terrible. I'm surprised that in the 3 years since Sun and Moon released, I haven't really seen anyone talk about how almost every trial is basically the same thing, just framed in a very loosely different way. Take a look at the first trial. You're told by the trial captain that you have to battle 3 wild Pokemon in this cave to be able to battle the Totem Pokemon and get your Z Crystal. But there's only one path through this cave. Much like the rest of the game, it's completely linear. So just a couple steps from the start point, there's a little green hole, and if you press A on it, bam, there's the first Pokemon. The thing is, you can't miss this because, like I say, there's only one linear path through the cave, so if you happen to walk past this little hidey hole through the rest of the cave, you're gonna have to come back at some point and press A if you just so happen to miss it. It's one of the only things you can interact with. The second one, when you're walking down this straight linear path, just runs into you. Okay. On your way to getting the third one, you run into a couple of Team Skull grunts, have a completely inconsequential battle with them, and then do a pretty pointless runaround with the third one who goes between holes. But again, it's completely linear because they always go in and out of the same place, come back in the same place, and everyone is going to have done this trial in exactly the same way. Then there's the water trial, which is literally just a series of text boxes where the trial captain tells you to go check out a little splashy pool of water. You press A on it and then it's a battle. She does this twice, and then you do the third one, and then it's the totem battle. There's no exploration to be had here. It's just a very small area with a very linear path through, 3 battles with tiny wild Pokemon, and then the totem battle. It's literally the exact same thing. So quite a lot later on you do the ghost trial, and it's quite a cool setup because the trial captain tells you that you're about to go inside a building where there's a bunch of ghost Pokemon haunting it, and she wants you to take pictures of them. And it sounds pretty cool, right? Like, it sounds like a pretty cool setup. So you go inside, and yet again there's only one path you can walk down. There's one linear path, and then like midway through the path the game stops, pans over to like a shaking object, and tells you that something is moving, literally telling you where one of them is. How is this fun? How is this interactive? So many of these trials are literally you being led down a single linear path and then being pointed in the direction of the objective, and the only thing you can do is go over and fulfill that objective because there's nowhere else to go. There's nothing else to do. How is this any better than a puzzle in a gym where at the very least there were different orders to solve the puzzle in, or there were different ways to solve the puzzle? I never thought the gym system was particularly amazing, but somehow we went downhill from there. This is significantly more boring and much less interesting. Like, the way that these objectives are pointed out to you is even more obnoxious because you were already going that way, because that's the only way you can go. You have no other options, so the fact that the game feels the need to pan over and point them out is just kind of insulting to your intelligence. And you could argue, sure, that they mix it up by having you use the Stoutland to sniff around for items, or having you take the pictures of the ghost Pokemon, but tell me that that's worth it. Tell me that that's actually any kind of meaningful content, because it's just more pushing of the A button. Like, there isn't any variety to it. It's not interesting, it's not fun, and it's definitely not good enough for, I think, people to be calling these trials good. I don't think any of them are even passable. There are 2 exceptions to this rule of walk in a straight line and fight 3 Pokemon and do the totem, and somehow they're both worse. The fire trial is spot the difference. The trial captain tells you that he's going to have 3 Marowak dance for you, and then you need to spot the difference between the 2 dances. It's extremely easy, it's pathetically easy, no one should ever get it wrong. You get the first one right, you fight a Marowak. Then he does it again, and on the second one, a literal man, a hiker, jumps into the frame, and he is the difference. Now look, far be it from me to not have a sense of humour and not be able to laugh at stuff. It's kind of funny, but like, I would be able to laugh if the other trials had been even remotely good, because this one is clearly being treated as a joke, right? In the third one, the totem Pokemon shows up in the frame and then you battle that, and it would be funny, but like, every trial has been a joke. This is just the one that's supposed to make you laugh. And then there's the electric trial, which is a multiple choice quiz, and I'll put quiz in quotation marks because here's a fun fact: despite the fact that the questions are stupidly easy, and I'm willing to bet that no one has ever unintentionally got them wrong before, if you do get them wrong, guess what happens? Nothing happens. There's no consequences, there's no repercussions, you just get to try again until you get it right. Is it even a quiz anymore? In a quiz, when you get a question wrong, there's some kind of consequence. This is just a series of text boxes. It's just a cutscene, but the only difference is sometimes you've got to move the D-pad up and down. How is this a trial? It's not only is it not a trial, it's not even a quiz, because there's literally no consequence to getting it wrong. I got my question wrong on purpose just to see what happened, and when I saw that it was nothing, I was disappointed but somehow not surprised. It wouldn't shock me if you get the Marowak dance question wrong from the fire trial, that nothing happens there either, and you just get to try again until you're right. How can people defend these trials? I just think they're absolutely horrendous. Yet again, it's a matter of player interactivity. Every single player will have the exact same experience with all of these trials, which you could at least say in regards to the gyms was not true. People would solve puzzles in slightly different ways or slightly different orders. So how people can claim that the island trials are a positive change is just beyond me. They're terrible, and I so hope that they don't come back, and if they do come back, then Game Freak actually put a little bit of effort into them and try and make something of substance. So I have a whole bunch of smaller little complaints that are kind of petty that I didn't think were big enough to really warrant their own section, so I'll just kind of go through those. I don't think the characters are really anything amazing, and granted that's something that every single main series Pokemon game is guilty of, but yeah, I mean, I said earlier about how I quite enjoyed the story, and I stick to that. When the end credits rolled and you see all the postcards of the characters and their Pokemon and the music's playing, it's a really nice moment, and it got me a little bit emotional, but at the same time, it's not hard to be emotionally attached to these characters when you're practically stapled to them the whole game. You are effectively conjoined quintuplets for this game, because as we've discussed before, you keep getting yanked back onto the main story path and you're dealing with these people 24/7. Hao is extremely uninteresting, and his whole personality seems to be that he just doesn't change, which, like, okay. Team Skull, everyone seems to love them. They seem to think they're really charming and funny because they move funny and they've got a cool song and they say some funny stuff. But they're just the same as every other vague crime syndicate in every other main series Pokemon game. And Guzma is really weird. He's got a pretty cool backstory that's hinted at, but it's a very small shred of information. I like the Professor, and I think the twist being that he is the final battle is pretty cool, but I also think it came a generation too late, because let's be real here, Professor Sycamore is definitely getting freaky with your mum. The main series Pokemon formula has been the same for 7 generations now, and everyone has kind of just accepted that. But surely that doesn't mean we can't make smaller tweaks, like maybe the evil team could just not be an evil team with team something this time around. Maybe it could be, I don't know, literally anything else. Literally anything more interesting. I don't know why it has to be a staple that there's an evil team. Like, there's so many things you could possibly do with a series like this in a world like this, and it's frustrating that we just keep on doing the same thing. And on that note, I want to talk about the lowland Pokemon. So they're this kind of regional variants of classic Pokemon that everyone knows, but they're like new forms that are native to Alola, which is a really cool idea, and they've got some pretty cool designs. But then it's so frustrating that every single one is just from Kanto, like just from Generation 1. It's well documented by now that Nintendo and Game Freak have a really bad nostalgia baiting problem. They just can't seem to stop themselves from going back to the well of whatever they did like 20 plus years ago and trying to use that to bring back the old fans in. But you miss out on so many potentially interesting design concepts by exclusively making the lowland Pokemon from Generation 1. Like, what's the goal here? Do you think some guy who played Pokemon back in the 90s is going to look at it and be like, oh, they made Muck green now, definitely paying 40 quid for that? And even if they are, why do you care that much? Like, you have a strong and stable enough fan base that you shouldn't be kind of desperately trying to clutch on to the people who played the game from years ago. I think you should be marketing more towards the fans of the future and the people who are going to have a continued interest, and not the people who are going to fall out of it and be baited back in by nostalgia. And that's where my petty little problem with the Poke Ride comes in. So if you think this point is stupid and you just want to disregard it, then I kind of completely understand. But Why is Charizard the fly Pokeride Pokemon? I just think this he's had enough of the spotlight, hasn't he, right? Like, he's literally in Smash Bros. They gave him 2 Mega Forms. You've got like 500 bird Pokemon you could have given any kind of spotlight to. Why is it gotta be Charizard, man? Why is it always gotta be Charizard? Why we gotta keep enabling the little Charizard fan club, huh? Why don't we just go ahead and suck Charizard's dick? I feel like in regards to my earlier comments about Team Skull, a lot of people are gonna bring up the Aether Foundation, to which I'd say, well, they're basically the same thing. They're another huge group of uninteresting goons that are ruled over by one person. It's just another evil team under a different name. They are as uninteresting as all the trial captains and all of the island kahunas, with one exception, and I don't really feel the need to talk about them. I also don't even think the soundtrack is that good. In general, I think that the Pokemon spin-off games actually have better soundtracks than the main series, but there are definitely main series games that have had very strong soundtracks, but I don't think this is one of them. I think a lot of the songs are largely forgettable, and then there are songs like Gladion's theme, which is like, it's a cool song, but why is it playing while I'm fighting Gladion? It doesn't really feel like a song that fits his character at all. And there are songs I like Vast Pony Canyon, I like the Seafolk Village songs, but for the most part, I wouldn't be able to I wouldn't really remember any of the songs from the towns or the routes or anything like that. The last thing I want to complain about is the Ultra Beasts. Now, in the lead up to the release of these games, while these things were getting revealed, there were quite a lot of interesting theories going around about them, like, oh, this jellyfish thing looks kind of like Lily. Is it maybe like her Pokemon form or something? And then we saw Pheromosa and we thought, wow, that looks quite a lot like Lusamine. And some people were saying that Gladion looked a bit like Buzzwole. I mean, we all have our moments, but you know. But unfortunately, it turns out to just kind of not be anywhere near as interesting as that. They're just aliens. They're just aliens from space, and most of them just look like big household appliances. I understand that if they're aliens, you want to make them look a bit different, but like, I don't like these featureless things. They don't look like Pokemon at all, and again, you could argue they're supposed to look alien, but I don't think they had to look just completely featureless and I don't know, so devoid of personality. Like, look at Celesteela. Is that a Pokemon or is that just an object? Like, what is it? Late in the game, you actually go to Ultra Space, the different dimension where these beings are supposedly from, and it's 2 screens. It's literally just 2 screens, 2 very small screens, then you come back. You literally go to space in this game and you just come back and it's like no big deal. Maybe they expand on that in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, I don't know. I didn't play those games. This video isn't about Ultra Sun and Moon because these games didn't make me want to play Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. Like, when Mega Evolutions were first unveiled, the Mega Pokemon designs kind of annoyed me because I was like, why did Mega Tyranitar and Mega Aerodactyl literally just gain spikes? Why did Mega Gyarados get smaller? Why does Mega Slowbro look like he'd spilt a Pepsi in your house? But these things are just devoid of anything, and I just really don't like them. And Ultra Space and Ultra Beasts and Z Crystals and all this stuff they introduced this generation, it feels too big to just do away with next generation like it's a single generation gimmick, like what they did with Mega Evolution. This is literal beings from space. If we move to the next generation of Pokemon and they aren't really relevant at all, then I'm gonna have some questions, much like I did with Mega Evolution. That feels like way too big a discovery to just leave in Generation 6. So there you have it. There's just about all the reasons that I hate Pokemon Sun and Moon. I'm sure if I really wanted to, I could have gone on even longer, but I don't think anyone wanted to hear that. I only make a video like this because I'm passionate about the series, because I care about it, because I love it, and I do hope that some of my problems can be addressed in the next generation, but realistically, I think Game Freak will probably double down on the design philosophy they use for this generation, because like I say, there was a lot of positive things said about these games. They got a lot of positive encouragement. I wouldn't be surprised if the next generation, the experience share gives your entire team double experience share, and maybe a Starbucks as well. So much like everyone else, I await Generation 8 with bated breath. Very curious to see what comes out. Like I say, I remain reasonably pessimistic that it will probably be the same thing, but if that's the case, then obviously I'm not going to continue to moan about it, because then it's just kind of, I'll have to accept that the series isn't really for me anymore and it's going in a different direction that I don't like, and that's fine, because not everything is made for you, right? And with that in mind, anyone who loves these games, feel free to let me know why, because I'm genuinely interested in hearing other people's perspectives. In the build up to making this video, I kind of conferred with the other people who felt the same way as me to get a mix of opinions, but I want to hear people from the other side. I hope my incessant babbling didn't annoy you too much. And in regards to Generation 8, let's hope I'm wrong. but not in regards to this video. Let's hope I'm right on that.